you actually are a victim of America's BDS laws. Which is wild because I remember they were coming out with these laws and I was like, damn, I wonder if they'll actually apply them. And I read it, some cases they did, but you were actually prevented speaking at a university, I think Georgia, because of your support for boycott, divestment sanctions on Israel. So what's the deal with
briefly, for people who don't know that are listening, there's over 28 states that have passed statewide measures to force independent contractors to sign a pledge that they have not and will not ever boycott the state of Israel. This law has been challenged on local levels, like, for example, Texas, a speech pathologist who is Palestinian, if I'm not mistaken, challenged it. And so there's been different verdicts throughout. I was slated to give a keynote speech at a media literacy conference, ironically enough, like something that's supposed to be about free speech on a college fucking campus. This is like something that we hear conservatives bemoan about constantly, like free speech suppression because people boo Milo Yiannopoulos or whatever. And it's like, no. Pro-Palestine speech is actually being systematically censored by the state. Like, that is actually the definition of censorship. And so BDS activism on a campus level is where it's being targeted the most. But this is like statewide initiatives that if you are just going to work, like let's say you're a construction worker and you sign a contract of work for a couple weeks, this clause is in your contract that you cannot ever boycott the state of Israel. And so I've been covering this for a while with my film Gaza Fights for Freedom and a bunch of other work that I've been doing for Palestinian advocacy.
Yeah. Really good. I've seen it. Fantastic.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. That's great. And so, of course, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is in this contract in Georgia? I was like, of course I'm not going to sign this shit. And the organizers, the entire conference fell apart. And behind the scenes, we've subpoenaed internal documents, and like all the organizers just like, what should we do? We should just cancel it. So anyway, I decided to sue the state of Georgia with CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and also the Partnership for Civil Justice Fund, who has done a lot of great work for protest zones in DC. We've worked together to sue the state of Georgia to try to repeal this law. They are now trying to up the cap on independent contractors to make it so, like, unless you're getting paid $100,000, it doesn't apply to you, just to like make the case moot. So now it's all kind of on hold from COVID. Whoa. But here's what's really interesting is that they brought my case to like the local legislature or whatever to talk about what they should do. And they brought an Israeli consulate official with them to talk about, like, well, what should we do? Like, this guy's telling us we should do this. It's like, wait, is this like direct foreign interference from a foreign country? And then also, the day after my case was filed, and people can watch the press conference on Empire Files YouTube, it's very important to really understand what's going on, because this is the most flagrant, blatant violation of our free speech rights going on in the country today. The right to free speech, the right to have political boycotts, which was granted by the Supreme Court during the Montgomery bus boycotts during the civil rights era. These are two things enshrined in the First Amendment, and they are being undermined by the state of Israel. The day after I filed my lawsuit, Netanyahu's office tweeted, like, we've worked really hard to pass these laws in the United States, and whoever boycotts us will be boycotted. Like, literally threatening economic consequences for Americans who would dare to boycott a foreign country, which is completely our right to do.
Yeah.
And if you were to replace, I just like want people to do like a thought experiment. Just replace the word Israel with like Russia. If you were given a contract to work, and it was like, you can never boycott Russia. I mean, it's just like so surreal that these have passed in so many states.
Yeah.
And we have to actually sue the state in order to challenge these laws, because it's already passed under the radar for so many people. I think, like, if you were to ask the average person, like, they would just be like, what? That's crazy. But no one even knows that this is happening, because they're all passed under the assumption that they're fighting anti-Semitism somehow, because it's all conflated and it's really gross. And so hopefully our goal is to eventually get this to the Supreme Court, because of the different verdicts that have been passed down. I think 3 states now have been, this has been challenged. So hopefully that happens, and hopefully a judge does the right thing, because it's just so goddamn obvious that it's a violation of our Constitution.
It's one of those things that's so flagrant that I think if you explain it to just a normal person who doesn't know what like BDS is, or even really what Palestine is, they'd be like, what? You can't like boycott? You have to buy sabra?
But it's the worst.
It's not even that. It's like, it's not even good.
It's awful.
I don't think
Good.
I've ever had it.
Yeah.
And then people, it's always funny too. It's like people are like, well, if you really want to boycott Israel, you got to boycott your computer too. It's like, fine, I will. You can't tell that I use it. It's in my home. I'll just lie and say I do.